Chapter 12. We got a couple things going on here that are just meant to kind of advance the storyline and to show you the way of life. The first thing that we have going on is Jem is 12 and Scout, that makes Scout like 8 right now. Remember, we're working our way up to when he was 13 and he got his arm badly broken. So he's 12 now, she's 8. And because he's getting older, in the South especially, like they considered a person as they got older. Calpurnia starts to call him Mister because he is turning into an adult and because he is white. Had he been black, he would not get this title. All right. So this is still one of those inequality things, that a white boy gets called Mister, a term of respect. Right. Jem also starts to act like he's older, like he's some sort of adult. He starts telling Scout what to do. And of course, that makes her really mad. And so that's going to create more tension for them. You also get a glimpse into the life of what it was like to be African American in the 1930s in your church. There's a couple things to make sure that you caught on to. Number one, their church, the name of it is First Purchase, because it's the first thing that they purchased with the money that they were being paid as free people. All right, so that's pretty symbolic, and this is a true thing. Harper Lee is using a lot of true stuff in her book. Remember when we first started and I told you that she bases it a lot off of her own life? Atticus is based off of her dad. Scout is actually based off of herself. She was this tomboy person. And now we have this first purchase of the church being a real thing. Here's the thing, though. During the week, the church is used by the white men for gambling. And I just want to point out that, remember when we talked about that gambling was a sin, gambling was wrong, you're not allowed to do it. Why are they using, so if you're doing something sinful, why would you do it in a house of God, right? In a church. But the fact that they're using, excuse me, the fact that they're using the black church shows that they have no respect for what this building is, who it belongs to, what it's used for. They use it during the week for gambling, and it's their house of worship. I mean, I can't imagine somebody coming in and using my church to gamble, put up some slot machines and poker tables and whatever. And like, that's not even wrong, anymore. So I don't know. It just shows a lot of disrespect of whites towards the blacks. Okay. When they get there, so they go to church with Calpurnia because Atticus is out of town. And when they get there, most of the black people are happy to have them there. And the reason is because of what Atticus is doing for Tom Robinson. This is the church that Tom Robinson goes to. These are his friends and family members. And they respect Atticus for actually working this case. They know that anybody else would have just been like, oh, he's black, he's guilty. But Atticus is actually trying, and they respect him for that. Therefore, they respect his children, and they're like honored to have the kids there. Except for one person. And Lula is there on purpose, to show the tensions that existed. It wasn't just whites against blacks, but it was also blacks against whites. When you're put down for so long, you can't take it any longer. And Lula is one of them that she's like, they don't need to be here. They got their church and we got ours. Okay, separate but equal. And she says they have no right to be here. They don't need to come to our church. They can go to their church. Get them out of here. And she's pretty ugly about it. And it was cool to see the way that the people came around Jem and Scout and basically just pushed Lulu out of the circle. So while they're in church, Scout talks about how it's very much like her own church, which people are people. That's one of the things that I've learned about traveling is that it doesn't matter whether you're in Guatemala, Costa Rica, Israel, like people are people. Kids are kids. They do the same things. Um, and it's true. And Scout's surprised by this, but why would their church be any different than her church just because they have different colored skin? So we have that happening. Some of the things are a little bit different, though. I mean, different cultures have a different way of doing things. And one of the things is that they don't have hymn books, which upsets Scout quite a bit. How are we supposed to sing if there ain't no hymn books? But she quickly learns about lining. And this, again, is a real thing. One person sings the line, the congregation repeats it. And this is done because the people don't know how to read. Cal points out that there's only 4 people in that whole church, and at one point they said 100 voices, so we're talking about 100 people. Only 4 of them know how to read. Calpurnia is one of them. Her son Zebo is one of them. The pastor is one of them, and I don't know who the 4th one is. But it's very unique that Calpurnia and her son know how to read. And we get the story of that. And she was taught out at Finch's Landing by Miss Maudie's aunt. And so then they start to realize how old Calpurnia is. And they realize that she's older than Atticus, which Atticus is almost 50. So Calpurnia's not that old because some of us other people are almost 50. But they also find out that Cal doesn't know when her birthday is. They just celebrate it on Christmas. And I hope that kind of stuck out to you of why would she not know her birthday? Like everybody knows when their birthday is. But the thing was is that um, she's born in like the 1880s, 1870s ish. Civil War ends in 1865. So this is a time of huge transition. And if you don't know how to read, you don't know how to write. So you don't write down what day your kid's born. If you're living on a plantation in slavery time, does it matter enough to the master to write it down? There's just a lot of questions about why, but a lot of Black people didn't know the actual date of their birth, and that also is a true fact. The book that she has was given to her by Granddaddy Finch, and so the kids realize that she has been with the Finch family. She came from Finch's Landing. That means her parents, her family, they were slaves for the Finches. With the freedom after the Civil War, the Finches continued to keep the people on, but they hire them, and generations continue to work for, continue to work for the Finch family. Another thing that's different about their church is that the pastor calls out specific people for sinning. Oh, you better mind your ways, and he uses a name. Just think about how awkward that would be. He also counts the offering right away. And then he says, nope, it's not enough. We need more. We need to get at least $10 for Helen Robinson. And this brings us back to the Tom Robinson case. This is his wife, and we learn later from the Reverend that she's having a hard time finding a job. Nobody wants to hire her because nobody wants to get involved in what's going on with Tom, with the court case. And so the pastor says, we're raising $10 for Helen and those kids. And so, we're not leaving until we do. And he actually shuts the doors of the church and basically locks them in until they get the amount of money that he wants. And so people start to give a little more, a little more, a little more. And when it's still not enough, he starts calling people out by name. I know you got 10 cents in your pocket. Bring it on up here. You don't have any kids to feed. You come and put another dime in here. Anybody that doesn't have kids, you bring it up. And he even calls people by name and tells them that they need to come up and put it in there. And just Think about how awkward that would be. Think about when you're in the classroom and your teacher calls your name. All attention goes to you. Everybody turns and looks at you. Um, that awkwardness now, if it's so that you give more money to the offering, implying that you were being stingy, that's really awkward. Okay. We also get a conversation between Scout and Calpurnia about leading a double life. Notice the judgment that Scout passes. Why do you talk like that when you're with them when you know it's wrong? Well, who says it's wrong to speak the way that people do in their own communities? She's judging Calpurnia off of her white standards. Okay? Um, we're all guilty of this. We all change the way that we speak as we get into different groups. I'm pretty sure that the things that you say to your friends, the way that you talk, the words that you don't use with maybe your grandparents or maybe your pastors are kind of different now. They're more friends. But you don't use those same types of slang and stuff with your grandparents. So everyone changes the way that they talk, but I want you to notice Scout's judgment and the fact that she says that the way that the blacks talk is wrong, and she's using her white standards. Um, we learned that the whole crux of the case is that Bob Ewell, down in nasty, gross guy family, has accused Tom Robinson of raping his daughter Mayella. That's what this whole court case is about. Scout doesn't even know what rape is, and Calpurnia says, you'll have to ask your daddy. He can explain it better than I can. And then as they come around the corner, they see somebody sitting on their porch, and it's Aunt Alexandra. And wow, is she something. You'll learn about her in Chapter 13.